and welcome to this edition of Issues and Insights. I'm your host, Kendra Scott, and I am very excited to be in one of my favorite locales. We are on location at the Kentucky High School Basketball Hall of Fame Museum with our good friend Paul. How are you?
I'm doing well, Kendra.
Great
Thanks.
to see you. And this is kind of a sacred, holy space. A lot of time we come and we see the big displays and we've been outside, but this is kind of sacred, holy ground for anyone that's ever been a player or a coach. It's the locker room. And that is the scene of a lot of heartbreak and tears where you let your emotions out. It's where you get pumped up and ramped up before a game. It's where you get your critical coaching. And so often we talk about the players and the wonderful victories and some of the heartbreaking losses, but none of that would be possible, obviously, without the coaching staff. And so this space is dedicated to our award-winning and stellar coaches across the Commonwealth. So thank you for including this, because obviously it's integral and key. No one can play. You can put kids out there on the court, but somebody's got to tell them what to do, right? And how to do the passing.
This is one of the most critical areas, Kendra, of learning.
It is.
And right here in our Terry and Bonnie Patterson locker room, they were so thrilled to have their sponsorship be part of our museum in our locker room, and because this is where a lot of critical things get learned, critical things get passed on, memories are made. You hear stories about these legends, and we'll go through some of these legendary coaches. And one of our guests today, you're in a locker room like this. It takes you back to the old days when you're cramped. It may not be the biggest of spaces. You may be right next to a train, might be right outside your locker room window and rattling and making noise. It might not have the best smell, and it could have exposed pipes and who knows what else. But the memories from the locker room are the memories that young student athletes take forever. They take them with them forever, and the memories that are shaped there by the coaches are even more valuable, because you hear those things from your coaches over and over. You hear those messages, and they get ingrained not just on the basketball court, and we've been on the court several times, but it's in that locker room where those relationships are formed, where those messages get ingrained, and where those memories last forever.
Those life lessons are taught.
Absolutely.
And that's where you have that space that it's just yours and your teammates, so you don't have all the eyes of the world looking on you. You don't have the fans, the pressure, the media. You're in your space. And so it is really, it's a great vacuum where you learn those life lessons and where you bond with your teammates. And so I don't think we may necessarily give the locker room the credit that it deserves, because we a lot of times think, it's a stinky space where you change your clothes. But think of all that transpires there. If those walls could talk.
Unbelievable.
Stories,
We have 24 coaches out of our 100 Hall of Famers. There are 24 coaches. We have 9 of them featured here. We have 3 back here.
Yes.
We have 4 in the lockers. You'll get to see that. We have a couple over here, from John Bill Trivett to Letcher Norton, Billy Hicks, Donna Moyer, Randy Meyer, Bobby Watson, and so many others. And you have, out of these 9 coaches that we feature, there are over 7,000 victories among those 9 coaches. Almost 7,000 victories.
Unbelievable.
That reaches the amount of winning, not just, but the amount of lessons and the amount of energy that you're putting out to all those players, girls, boys. It doesn't matter on that level. The high school girls teams, the boys teams, those coaches are invaluable, and they maintain the great history and tradition. And one of the wonderful things about our guests today, our special guest, Coach Curtis Turley, is
living legend.
He's been a coach all over the Commonwealth, 11 different schools, a winner at every one of them. One bad one, one year that it was a 1 year, but his mission of coaching wherever he went, it's greater than just basketball. And as we're in a converted church, as we know, the old First Pres Church, right? The old First Pres Church. This guest today, Curtis Turley, head coach for many schools, and even at Western with the girls, Western Kentucky University
Yes, which is
women's
very close to
program.
my heart. My
Yes,
Toppers, yes.
And his affiliation there touched a lot of lives. And when you talk about reaching throughout the Commonwealth, his reach is pretty long and pretty strong throughout the Commonwealth, and it's all been quite successful. So it'll be real exciting to hear from him.
It is. I'm very excited. He and I had just a brief conversation earlier, and just already I saw the spark in his passion. We talked about that relationship building and that he saw basketball as his mission to reach people and children all across the Commonwealth. So it's amazing, his story, and I can't wait to ask some really great questions and just learn more about it. And it's you're so cool of always bringing in living legends, because we don't get this up close and personal with guys like Coach Turley. So thank you for that. So.
And he's just a tremendous individual, tremendous gift to the Commonwealth. There are many like Curtis and him. He and so many others who help create the Kentucky Association of Basketball Coaches, high school basketball coaches. They are the lifeblood of this sport in Kentucky, and reconnecting what he and so many like Curtis do now is trying to reconnect that spirit and that spark to the almost 600 coaches that we have on the high school level now, about 560 or so coaching girls and boys high school basketball. So it's going to be really fun to hear some of the stories, because we only have 30 minutes, right?
Unfortunately, yes.
We better bring him in soon.
That's right.
and hear some of those stories, get him started.
Okay, he's up next. We're looking forward to it. And welcome back. It is our honor and privilege to have with us Coach Curtis Turley, the one and only, who really, I don't know if I've ever met someone of his status before. So this is pretty humbling for me, and thank you for being with us and taking the time to come to Elizabethtown. We are thrilled to have you, and I could really spend the whole 30 minutes just reviewing your resume and talking about how great you are and the things you've accomplished, but we'll give just the synopsis, and then we'll talk a little bit more in depth about all your accomplishments. But you're a native of Crittenden County, which is in the western part of the state, and that's where you played as a high schooler. You played basketball, and I assume maybe that's where the spark first, where the love of basketball began.
Actually, I knew as a youngster in grade school, when the teachers would go around and say, what do you want to be? You know, the typical policeman, fireman, those things. I knew early on that I wanted to be a basketball coach.
Really?
So I think I was extremely blessed to have known that basically throughout my life, and I tried to prepare for it as I was growing up.
To get that calling. And did you always want it to be high school, or did you think you'd coach pro?
Well, there was
a
a time that I thought that maybe I would coach college, and I had an opportunity once or twice, and the best opportunities I had was just as my son was getting ready to enter high school, and it wasn't that I had to coach Tanner. But when at that time the rules were, and I can remember one of our Hall of Famers here, his dad, Wade Houston, got in trouble for going into watching, just to watch Allen play a game. It was against the rules. So I made the decision not to take that opportunity and stay in high school, because I wasn't going to have coached everybody else's kid for 25 years and then not get to coach, at least see my own son play.
It's an unbelievable, not only the NCAA could wreck a father-son relationship.
Exactly.
It's only the NCAA.
I think they've loosened some of those now, Paul.
Exactly, but in the 80s, it was the only way. I mean, that must have been a real challenge, because your son, your daughter, you have 2 kids, you have a family, and you went to 11 different schools over.
Actually 12.
12 different schools. Sorry.
No, that's all right.
30 years
That's
of coaching and over 600 wins. But Curtis, what was that? You mentioned, what was that moment when you were a kid that made you say, I want to coach? Where, you might could know that that's it, but how did you know? I mean, most kids, if they love that game, that sport, they want to play it.
Right.
How did you get that?
I've never really been asked that before, Paul. But just immediately off the top of my head, I think, as soon as I picked up a ball, and a lot of people in here could tell you that, I just love basketball right off the bat. But I can remember going to my very first games as a little kid, and I would focus in on the bench and all, and I just thought that the coach being able to direct the players, encourage the players, I just thought it was really neat, and the way you could see the camaraderie that they had, the players and the coaches, and the closeness that they had, and I just thought it'd be a neat thing to be able to do.
That's great.
Impressive as a youngster. I was thinking about how do I make myself better as a player, but eventually the coaches that have touched your lives, I can tell you who my first coaches were to this day, and I still have relationships with them. Tony Tomaselli was the head coach, John DeFazio, Rob Eckenrod, Jim Molnar, Larry Wayner. All these guys are still a part of my life because they gave me the foundations of the game.
They molded you.
And I tell people all the time, my best friends in life now are former players and former assistant coaches, outside of immediate family. If I had something go wrong between E-Town and Bowling Green today, it would be a player probably that I would call first to help me. And some of those guys are the same ones that would have liked to have kicked my hind end when they were playing for me, But we've developed a great relationship over the years, and I thank the world of them. I've been blessed to have coached a lot of great guys. Many of them have gone on to be head coaches. I coached Greg Todd. He was on my very first team. He won 3 state championships. He's already a member here. Kerry Stovall won the state championship with the boys at Christian County. He played for me at Lyon County, and I could just go on and on. Damian Fishback, was Mr. Basketball at Greenwood, and my son Tanner. But there's so many players, and a lot of them were great players. But the thing that I am most proud of is the fact that almost, when you coach hundreds, you can't say that all of them made it to exactly the status that they would like to achieve in society, but most of them have become outstanding community members and contributed a lot. I know Jeremy Keys that played for me I thought about him this morning driving up, played for me alongside Damian Fishback at Greenwood. He's a professor now at Villanova.
Wow.
And so, I've got them out there in every walk of life, from coaches to doctors to lawyers. And if I need something, I'm going to call those guys.
Yes, what a testimony. You said yourself, you can't go anywhere without seeing someone that you have touched lives, crossed paths with, either coached them or coached against them, played them, anywhere you go, which is probably a great feeling to run into folks everywhere you go.
It really is. And then you just sparked another memory. You said you grew up as an Army brat.
I sure did.
Well, I was coaching an all-star team in '89, and we played against the military group, the Berlin Bears in Berlin, Germany.
Oh, very cool.
And that was before the wall came down.
Yes.
The next year we went back and played in East Germany, actually in the spring of '90, after the wall had come down. But we were eating. I had the guys lined up, and I was getting ready to pay a bill, and I hear this cute girl holler, "Hey, Coach Turley!" I mean, just out of the blue.
Oh my goodness!
And it was a girl who had been a cheerleader for us at Henderson County High School.
Oh my gosh! On the other side of the world.
And I thought then, it is a small world.
Can't go anywhere.
And it's a small locker room. And Curtis, you've been in these small locker rooms, haven't you?
For sure.
Have you ever used the line that my high school coach once used when we were down in this was as close to a dungeon as you could possibly be in a basement.
Some of those you're talking about describing with the pipes.
It was about this and the smell, and he said, "Let's get out of this cesspool." That was after we defeated our arch rival back home.
Good job.
But or one of our rivals. But as we're in these tight quarters and we have these names, and you've touched so many lives as a coach with your players, you're also connected. We've got 9 coaches in here, and I know that you've got connections to almost every one of them, if not through the game, through your association, through the Kentucky Association of Basketball Coaches, et cetera, through KABC. So I think I'm going to leave you and Kendra to talk about some of those neat connections and those memories through the years with some of these great coaches we have here at the Hall of Fame in the locker room.
Sure, and there's a lot of them out there on the wall.
Oh, that too.
That I coached against over the years. So I have the utmost respect for them. And I will say this before you step out, Paul. I've told many people, and especially the young coaches, I think I got to coach in the golden age of high school basketball.
No doubt.
And the thing that when I go to games now, because I still go to a lot, the thing that I see missing is the coaches that I coached against. We were competitors. We might be nose to nose and look like we were ready to fight during the game, but when the game was over, we were willing to help each other with scouting reports, and we were basically friends.
Yeah,
you know, we were friends, not only competitors, but friends. And that's another thing you do miss when you stop coaching, is not only do you miss the camaraderie with your players, but the other coaches, because they were just great guys.
One of the things we like to say here is the stories here stay alive. We keep them alive. And I know there are going to be several stories, Kendra, that I'll hear today from Curtis that will help keep it alive. So, because this room, the sanctuary for Coach, is the locker room, that coach's office, and we'll get to hear some of those stories. So it's real thrilled to have you here, Curtis. Thank you so much for coming.
Paul. Appreciate it.
I look forward to hearing more of these stories with you and Kendra.
Yes, because
Thanks.
we've got to talk about that 1988 All-Star team.
Oh my,
Yes,
the
that was
Kentucky
my year.
All-Stars.
Yes,
There
the
you
Kentucky
go.
All-Stars. We've got to talk about that.
The
because
head
a lot of
coach
folks remember that.
against
The head
Indiana.
coach right here.
Yeah.
And of course, you've been a Coach of the Year. You were inducted in the Coaches Hall of Fame and co-founder of the Kentucky Association of Basketball Coaches. So we can't let that slide by without mentioning that, because that, we talked about it took so long for that to even happen. You would have thought an association would have been started decades ago, but it was a little bit further in your career. And so what was the pivotal point for you to co-found that?
Well, Ken Trivett and I we were coaching some All-Stars out west, and on the flight home, we just said, you know, we need one. A lot of people were saying it, not just us. It had been mentioned many times over the years, and in fact, they had tried back in the 70s, but it just never got off the ground. So we said, okay, we're going to start a grassroots movement, and I basically took regions 1 through 8. Ken took 9 through 16, because we said, you know, we're kind of like the old saying from Paducah to Pikeville, because I grew up near Paducah, and we contacted people, coaches that we thought would be involved and help us get the word out. And we started having our meetings, developed the Constitution, bylaws, and grew it from there. And that's something, you know, I'm certainly proud of every game that I got to coach, even win or lose. You know, you were involved in the process, and you were trying. You talked about, here I'm jumping off, Kendra, but when on your introduction, you were talking about all the great times in here and the sad times. Well, I was fortunate to have 4 teams win regional championships and go to the Sweet 16.
Yes.
But I also sat in that locker room 4 times on regional championship losses.
Oh, gosh.
And, you know, one in overtime, one on the last second shot. And those eat at you too over the years, you know. But yet the battle and the journey is what makes it so great. But
Have you considered writing a book to talk about all this incredible journey? I think you should.
several of my friends over the years have said that I should just tell some stories. I don't know that anybody would want to read it. We probably couldn't get our money back. But on the Coaches Association, what I was going to say, other than coaching itself, take a lot of pride in the way that our KBC, Kentucky Association of Basketball Coaches, grew, developed, and all the great things that it happened with it over the years. Not only did we give recognition to coaches of the year, players of the year, but we've given scholarships.
Oh, awesome.
We had a coaches assist fund where that we helped coaches in need that may have come down with some catastrophic thing happened to them or a family member, and even sports writers that had been close to us that we've helped out. So that was a great thing. And then Ron Bever is one of my good friends who's in the Hall of Fame here.
We all love him around here.
When Ron was president of our Coaches Association, at one of the meetings, he suggested, hey, you know, everybody says we need a Hall of Fame. We need to try to start one. So on that suggestion, then we all went to work and tried to make this happen, started having meetings. And so now the Hall of Fame is standing on its own, but it grew out of the Coaches Association that basically officially was started in 1992.
Awesome. Thank you for that vision and making this a reality.
Well, it was a lot of people across the state. You know, Kenny and I kind of just put the idea and started recruiting people, but it took a lot of people to make it happen.
Okay, Coach, we're going to play a really cool game. Behind these lockers are some famous faces, some coaches you have encountered through the years. And so when I open it and tell you who it is, just give me your first kind of reaction and tell us a couple of things about that person.
Okay.
All right. Behind door number 1, locker number 1, we have Coach Ralph Carlisle from Lafayette and Madison High School, who is a legend like yourself. 488 overall game wins. What do you want us to know about him?
Well, obviously I didn't get to see Coach Carlisle's teams, but I know from all the people that I do know, including players that played for him and some that played against him, he's an outstanding coach. Bob Mulkey, one of the players mentioned there, he was a great coach in his own right, won 2 state championships at Louisville Seneca, and he was my athletic director for 5 years at Henderson County, so I got to work alongside him and hear many Ralph Carlisle stories.
I bet. Okay. Behind door number 2, locker number 2, we have Coach Howard Beck, Marshall County, down your way.
That's right, just about 30 miles apart, and Coach Beth is just a truly not only outstanding coach but outstanding human being. And we got to be friends when he was actually assistant boys coach at Marshall County, and I was coaching at Lyon County High School, and we were playing against each other. And then he takes the girls' job then in '80, and that's the same spring that I left Lyon County to go to Warren Central in Bowling Green. But his record and his state championship speaks for itself on the job he did in building Marshall County into one of the best powerhouse girls basketball programs in our state.
You're not kidding. All right. Had that 34-0 record back in '84.
That's right.
Next, Coach Bobby Watson, Owensboro High School. Again, you're familiar. You've been Davis County way.
Oh, yes, I actually coached Davis County. I never got to coach against Coach Watson, but of course, growing up, I always heard about him. The saying in West Kentucky was, there was 2 things that you can count on besides death and 3 things. You can count on death, paying your taxes, and that Bobby Watson's team's going to win the 3rd region. But, and then of course he played one of his players that has the most notoriety, Randy Embry. I coached against him throughout my career and many times against Owensboro, and they're just a great all-time program.
You're not kidding. Fantastic. All right, and last but certainly not least, we have Coach Bobby Keith. Clay County High School, 767 wins, 86% career winning percentage. Amazing. Well, tell us about Bobby.
Well, Coach Keith, I think he's one of those guys with his personality. Everybody could enjoy being around Coach Keith and love visiting with him and talking with him. I tried to get him to play a series against our team when I was at Henderson County, and he wanted to play. But he only wanted to play at Clay County, and that may tell you one reason they have 129 consecutive home wins. And I kept saying to Coach, "Well, I want to play, but I want to play a home and home." And I even said, "We'll come to Clay County first," but we never could work it out. But great coach and just a great character of basketball in our state.
Maybe neutral territory at least, something.
We thought we were going to get to in a tournament a couple of times, but we didn't. We didn't meet. We were in opposite brackets.
Well, that is so awesome. Thank you for
I did coach his probably most notoriety player of all time that played for him, Richie Farmer. Richie played for me and was Mr. Basketball in '88 and was on our All-Star team against Indiana in '88.
And you talk about a team in '88. Oh my goodness! Talk a little bit about some of those phenomenal players that were.
Well, Kenneth Martin, his son ended up being a great player, Kenyon at Ballard, but of course Richie, Keith Atkins, Scott Bowley, his daughter Aaron is in the Hall of Fame already.
He's a local dentist. Or local veterinarian, I'm sorry. Dentist, I take that back. He's a local dentist.
We had a lot of really good players, but we were matched against Indiana that year, and the guy that didn't even get Mr. Basketball was like an 8 or 9 time NBA All-Star, and Sean Kemp. If you remember Sean Kemp, Woody Austin was Mr. Basketball. Sean Kemp didn't even get Mr. Basketball.
Wow.
And they were just loaded. They were loaded. We played them really close. James Boo Brewer, coach at Bardstown, played at Bardstown. Boo was on that team. Boo played great in Freedom Hall, and we took them right down to the wire and was real close with about 3 minutes to go. And Boo hurt his knee and had to come out, and they went on a little run and beat us. Same thing, we kept Market Square Arenas where we were playing back then before Conseco Fieldhouse in Indianapolis. And that's back when, there were still 12, 13,000 coming to the games.
Yes.
And we kept the arena quiet until late. And then I'll never forget, as long as I live, Sean Kemp had two. They were bounce long, offensive rebound, dunk stickbacks right over us.
Oh, wow.
And Rick Henry was having to guard him at 6'5", and here he was 6'11", with a wingspan of about a 7'3" guy.
Yes.
But it was a great experience, and I had fun with those guys. That's back when it was a 2-week ordeal. You practiced for a week, played, practiced another week, and then went to the opposite state.
I feel probably is the most essential part of your success and your history is your family, because behind every successful coach is a loving, caring family that has to be a part of the team as well. So tell me about your incredible family and what their role has been in your coaching career.
Well, family, you're right, it's very important. I'm the oldest of 5 boys, so
wow.
my brothers, we played in the barns.
You had a basketball team.
We did, played in the barns growing up, and then my mother and father could not have been more supportive. And then I'm very blessed to have married my high school sweetheart, Brenda, who loves basketball.
That's a good thing.
And I've moved her from one end of the state to the other, back and forth, and she's always been willing to do whatever I wanted to do. She was a surgical nurse for 40 plus years, and she could get a job, so it was kind of easy, but I probably didn't consider her enough along the way. She's the one that made the sacrifice. And then we have a lovely daughter, Courtney, and our son, Tanner. The two children.
A great ball player in his own right.
Tanner he was one of the best players that played for me, and had a great career, and I was blessed to have that opportunity to be able to coach him and share those good times and bad times together in the locker room. Sadly, he had to stay in the locker room with me longer than anybody else because he had to ride home.
Thank you so much. Congratulations.
Thank you,
Pleasure
Kendra.
being with you. Well, this has been an absolute dream come true for us today. I hope you've enjoyed this edition of Issues and Insights. We'll be back again in a few more weeks to visit with Paul and all the great staff here at the Kentucky High School Hall of Fame Basketball Museum. We love it, and we hope you have a wonderful day. We'll see you next time. I'm Kendra Scott. Bye-bye.